Hi, I'm Gary and welcome to my shop. In this video I'm going to show you how to make these pizza cutters from Woodcraft. One's a 4-inch, the other one's a 2.5 inch. And the handles for making these are the same on both of them. I use the same turning mandrels and process for turning these handles for each one of these. Stay tuned, I'll show you how I do it. I'm making these pizza cutters from Wood River, actually Woodcraft is where they come from. I've done the 2.5 inch and I'm doing the 4-inch one also. Now the 4-inch one is item number 154265. The 2.5 inch one is item number 158626. I've made one here already. This is the 2.5 inch pizza cutter. And making these handles for the 4-inch or the 2.5 inch is exactly the same. I use the same mandrel and the same process for mounting the threaded insert screw here into the handle, and the same turning process on the lathe. It's got that threaded insert in there. So I will go through this and show you how I do it. Basically I'll start out selecting a piece for the handle, and then what I'll do is flatten the 4 sides on my joiner, and then I'll cut the handle to a square of 1 7/16 inch dimension square, and then I will cut it to a 6-inch length and then trim the end to make sure that's squared up. And I'll do that on the table saw. I've got instructions here which is downloaded off of the web from Woodcraft, and then I've made some of my own notes, and I'll put a PDF up to this document here. You can see the notes that I made on it and the process and how I mount this up on my lathe. It's probably a little bit different. So I'll get on here and I'll show you how I make this. I picked out a piece of cherry that's about 6 inches long, just a little bit longer than that. I'm going to go to my joiner now. I'm going to flatten the 4 sides and make them square to another. Then I'll cut it down to size on my table saw and then square off the ends. I'm putting an X on each side here, so once the X's are gone, then I'll know I've jointed that side. Now I check my square, and I see that they're all square to all the sides. Next, I wanted to trim this block to 1 7/16 inches. This is slightly, about a 1/16 inch less than that, so I've got my fence set at 1 7/16 inches from the blade teeth here. This is slightly less, so this will be good enough. I'll leave it at that so I don't have to trim it. This would be one of the steps to do, though, is to trim this down to at least 1 7/16 inches. So my next step is I can take my miter gauge and trim off an end here to make sure it's square with everything. I got my fence all squared up and the blade is all squared up. So if you can see here, I've got this good and squared up in all ways, so it's good to go. I can drill the end in there for mounting onto the lathe. So I will use my Blokkz Squid here for marking the center hole for drilling. You can see one of my other videos on here in regards to how to use this Blokkz Squids, but just a tap, I've got a perfectly marked center hole. Now I will drill this out to a 5/16, then tap it to a 3/8 inch thread, and that'll fit onto the bottle stopper mandrel that I use for turning these. Okay, I've got my handle mounted up in my vertical drilling press here, 5/16 bit, and I've got my depth stop set to approximately 1 inch. That's about as deep as I need to go. Okay, so I've got my hole drilled. Ready to go trim off the edges here to make this an octagonal shape, so it'll be a lot easier for turning on the lathe. Now I have an octagonal shape. So I have my workpiece mounted up on the mandrel here. What I do is to spin this around, make sure it's seated well all the way around, so I know I've got a good flush seat. So later when the handle is on there, there won't be any crooked spaces or anything. Okay, so at my lathe here, I've got this mounted up in this mini bottle stopper mandrel. that I got from Rockler. The diameter on this turns out to be perfect for matching up with the handles on these pizza cutters, so I mounted this on here. Then I'm going to bring up my tailstock with a live center on here to close to the end here. I'm going to start this up at a slow speed and then advance my quill in there to try and get into a good center on that. Okay, so I've got that there. I'll bring up my tool rest here, adjust it for my lathe chisel, and get this to a good round cylindrical shape, and it should have a good balance by the time I do that. Pick this up to about 3,000 RPM. Okay, this is to a pretty good round now, so I can start shaping it. Then what I'll do is this will be the head of it, so I'll shape this down to this mandrel here. That's where that meets with the hardware. This other end here, I'm going to taper this off for the end of the handle. This is also where I will separate this with a parting tool. I've got that down to a point that'll keep holding it as I do some further shaping and sanding. And I'll sand from a 150 grit down to a 600. Okay, that's looking pretty good for the first grit. Down to the last grit of 600. Good. I'll go over it with a cloth here a little bit just to make sure I get all the dust off of here. Now I'm going to part this. Okay, I can take this tailstock away. I can kind of slow and easy dress up this tail end here now. Sanding up this end here so I can get it good and rounded. Using my hand here to hold it as a steady rest. So when I let go of it, it kind of rattled a little bit. Okay, looks like I've got her down there pretty good. I'll just put on some finish, turn it down to the lowest speed. Let that dry for a little bit. Then I'm going to probably come back and put a couple of lines in here, burn some lines in there for just kind of a decorative effect. Okay, so I'll put a couple of lines in here, just to give the handle a little bit of a decorative effect. Pick it up a little bit. I just use this, it's like a parting tool, and I use the pointed part of it just to make some lines in here. Then I'll go over that with the 600 grit sandpaper a little bit. Take down some of the edges and any grain that was raised from the finish. That smooths it up pretty good. Now I'll just put on a couple more coats of finish. Okay, this is probably not the safest thing in the world to do here. What I need to do is to enlarge this hole to a 12.5 millimeter. Now I've got it drilled to a 5/16, tapped to a 3/8. What I'm going to do now is to hold this here and drill it to the next sizes up. I'm starting out with a 3/8 bit here. That'll just basically clear out the threads in here. Now, the safe thing to do may be to have some gloves on where you can get a good grip on it and try and protect your hands from any injury. I've got the drill bit, I've always got my speed set on very low. As you can see, that cleaned it up pretty quick and easy. Knock out the sawdust. So next I'll step up to the 12 millimeter bit, which is almost up to like a 1/2 inch. The 3/8 bit that I just did is only 1/8 of an inch off. Now when I've done this before, it's gone pretty well. Okay, so you can see that worked pretty well for me, and now I can put that piece in here for screwing the hardware into it. Okay, so the next step is to put this threaded insert into this end of the handle, and then the hardware will screw into that. Now I put this in so that the slot on the threaded piece here will be facing outwards, so in case you need to get it out, you can get a screwdriver bit in there and get it back out again, and that'll slip in. I use this tool here that I've gotten. It's a tool for putting in these kind of things, although I can't seem to find where I got this tool at. But the thread on this is a 1/4 by 20 thread, so you can probably fashion something out of a 1/4 inch by 20 bolt for putting these in. Maybe locking a couple nuts on and using something there to where you can screw it in. And just screwing it in and getting into there, and then it'll seat in. What I'll do is put on some epoxy glue around this to make it stick in there well. So what I've done is I'm mixing up some 5 or 6 minute epoxy glue here, and just stir it up here a little bit. I got some of these like little popsicle sticks, so to speak, that I cut them in half with the side cutters, and that seems to work pretty good. That way I get more sticks out of it. And I'll thread this on here, and then coat the threads of this with the epoxy. Good idea to have some paper towel handy in case you get any squeeze out. And I'll get this screwed into here. So it seats all the way in. And then I can unscrew my tool. And that's set in there all the way. Wipe off any excess glue. I've got the threaded insert glued into there. We'll let that set up for a time, and then I can come back and put the hardware on. Okay, now that the glue is dried in this, we can assemble this together here into there, and just basically to screw the handle on. And we're set to go with a 4-inch pizza cutter. Now, of course, we've also got the 2.5-inch pizza cutter to go along with it for, I don't know, smaller pizzas. Well, to wrap this up, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got the inspiration to make something of your own. Please give me a like and share with your family and friends, and please subscribe to see what I may come up with next. Thank you.